So for the last 10 years, America has been on like hijacked basically by the transgender ideology. And at first, people were like, oh, this is unfamiliar, but they want to be understanding. And then now it's just kind of like snowballed to where we're looking at it in like the Supreme Court. And in the Jeffrey Epstein emails, there's this person named Jess Ting, and I'm going to bring them up here. And I want to read part of this for you because this is on Mount Sinai's website. So they are the director of transgender plastic surgery at Mount Sinai. And this person was also in Jeffrey's emails trying to get donations for their lab, for their research. And Jeffrey did confirm donate $50,000 to their research in addition to funding their documentary on transgender surgeries. And so Dr. Ting led Mount Sinai's first surgical genital reassignment surgery for the transgender population, a male to female operation called vaginoplasty. The procedure was completed in March 2016, with other procedures quickly following, including medalloplasty, phalloplasty, facial feminization surgery, and chest surgery. Most recently, Dr. Ting pioneered a new approach to vaginoplasty called peritoneum vaginoplasty, which uses one's own peritoneum lining to create a new vagina with similar properties as a cis vagina. What the fuck? Like, what are they even talking about? And this is what Jeffrey Epstein is paying for. So this is a scientist who's like on the fringe of research. Jeffrey Epstein is like scouring these people out, finds this person, Jess Ting, who's like this trans Japanese like scientist, and then like through his connections and relationships becomes the director of Mount Sinai vaginoplasty, and is now like, even after Jeffrey Epstein's death, has been like a nationwide renowned like transgender surgeon, and is like getting awarded and all these things, getting paid by Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, is he curating culture and like curating transgender culture? Do you know what I'm saying?
One thing that I'm noticing when it comes to power, because I totally know that this transgender tool was engineered. We know that it is engineered because obviously there's not enough science behind it. And what's weird is it moved extremely fast. That's what I think that we should be really like thinking about here. How fast it moved, right? So we went from like, I think Obama did gay marriage in like 2015. That was like one of the last things that he did. And coming out of office, well, he was in office, but before he left office, that was one of the last things he did. He did gay marriage, and he passed a whole bunch of stuff where transgenders could like in the bathrooms, they could use like their identifying bathroom. So a lot of the transgender legislation came from Barack Obama. So it feels like, okay, that came in the second part of his second term is when it's. But then that he's out in 2016 and Donald Trump is now in, and immediately, this transgender stuff, it continues to go and spiral out of control. And then we get Joe Biden back in and it gets even worse. And then now Donald Trump is back in and they're kind of like trying to reverse it. So I'm a little confused by what's happening. It's kind of confusing why we even got to the Joe Biden era. Why was the transgender thing not a big deal from 2016 to 2020 when President Trump was in office? That's what I'm kind of like trying to figure out, because I understand it wasn't as like 2016 is nothing like 2026, right? So the how people were interacting with each other, social media, like TikTok came around in 2016, so it's like maybe we need to look into the year 2016, because that is when TikTok came in 2016, and that is when Donald Trump came. Well, when he won the presidency, that happened in 2016. Transgenderism, all of this stuff started to spike around that time. So I really don't know. It just seems like to me, like when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, one connection that I think is really interesting with Jeffrey Epstein is this Harvard connection. Actually, I think Harvard is just interesting all the way around.
But Jeffrey Epstein's connection to these universities is something that like really needs to be studied, because we're focusing on the young girls, because it's like salacious and the parties and stuff like that. But we really need to be focused on his connection and his philanthropic work with these universities in these research labs, because some of the research that he was funding has like negatively affected our society, and like even politics is downstream from culture, and he was like specifically interested in curating American culture. And what's interesting is like how you said how he's like he's playing middleman with all these other countries. It's like, why does he have Mossad answering to him? Why does he have like Russian intelligence answering to him? Why does he have the CIA answering to him? Like, why does he have Prime Minister of Israel answering to him? He says in an email that he works for the Rothschilds. So could he be like, their representative in all these different areas? He's on the trilateral commission that the Rockefellers put him on. And then his connection with Jay-Z. And it just, so I want to talk about one scientist in specific whose research he had funded. His name is Robert Trivers, and he comes out of Rutgers University. He's a professor there. He's also, traveled around different like other universities as well. But Robert Trivers, he's a like biologist. He studies like animal reproduction and biological reproduction. And he was also really interested in like honor killings. But Jeffrey Epstein didn't want to fund his honor killings. He wanted him specifically to focus on transgenderism. And he says in an email that he'll fund him if he's going to focus on transgenderism, but he's not going to fund him if he wants to focus on honor killings. But I want to show you this email. This one's been circulating the internet too. I actually went back to the Epstein library and confirmed that this one is on there. And it's an email from Rob Trivers to Jeffrey Epstein, and they talk about transgenderism and engineering the culture and engineering American boys to be, more feminine. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I highlighted a couple sections here. This is from Robert Trivers to Jeffrey Epstein, and it goes, with greater molecular control over development, we are increasingly capable of producing novel phenotypes, more feminine men, by blocking testosterone receptors or castration, and at the same time increasing estrogen projection that one blocks male features. The second encourages female features. Okay, so this was December 17th, 2018, subject line trans. He goes on to say, if you like smelly masculine men, you want that hard cock that comes with the show. You do not want one of nature's more complex and variable structures, the poom poom, and in an acquired taste and not with a man. And then this is the smoking gun here. By the way, we are now pushing the intervention early. So you notice your 3-year-old son has trans tendencies. So now you intervene with hormones. I would be frightened to do that, but who knows? So this is a email coming from Robert Trivers, a scientist out of Rutgers University that Jeffrey Epstein has been financing for like a long part of his career. So this shows a direct connection between Jeffrey Epstein and research that can be later applied to society, specifically about transgenderism. So it shows that
Yeah,
it's not organic.
well, so for me, I like to tell people a lot of the time, like when it comes to our government and these agendas that are being pushed, whether it's feminism, transgenderism, LGBT, Black Lives Matter, whatever the agenda that they are pushing, they're not doing it because they love Black people or because they love trans people or because they love gay people. They're not doing it for those purposes. They're doing it for other reasons. Okay. They're doing it to push agendas. And the thing that you have to do is understand what agenda is actually being pushed. That's what you have to understand. You can't continue to be like, oh no, this is like too far out there. Like they like to label everyone as a conspiracy theorist, but it's like, I think conspiracy theories involve critical thinking. Okay. It involves critical thinking. You're not just, you don't come up with a conspiracy by just believing something someone said. If you came up with a conspiracy, it's because you're critically thinking about a lot of pieces to a puzzle. And that's what we have to do. Like I said, it's a transgender angle here. We have a Bitcoin angle here. We have a sex trafficking angle here, a cannibalistic angle here, ritualistic angle here. So we have all these different angles that are coming from this one person. So it's almost like we have the person that's going to connect a lot of dots.
Just to close out this Epstein angle. So we covered Rob Trivers. He's working with different scientists on research regarding transgenderism. He wants to put some of that research into culture. So here, insert is Joy Ito, who is the director of the MIT Media Lab. Now, MIT, that's like a military university, like all of our greatest generals, like MIT is very well known. Thomas Massey is actually an MIT alumni. But let's just pull this guy up, okay? So his name's Joy Ito, former director, former professor of the practice of media arts and science. This is another lab that Jeffrey Epstein financed, okay? So he was in contact with Joy Ito financing MIT Media Lab. And so they do a lot of research on a lot of different things. One of the things being like algorithms and like how to curate potential futures from media. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I just want to read this. So he is an activist who works on tackling complex problems such as climate change and societal inequity and redesign the systems of scholarship and science. Okay. So what he is interested in, and what Jeffrey Epstein was interested in funding, is how science and media technology can curate reality for Americans and change their perspective through algorithms, through like virtual and digital interfaces. So like social media, all your different like media, whether it's you're watching streaming Netflix or you're streaming Hulu or whatever you're streaming, all of these different digital virtual interfaces, music, culture, how they can influence American culture and curate it and socially engineer American culture while he's simultaneously funding transgenderism. And he's working with the MIT lab to do this and fund. So he's funding transgenderism at Rutgers. He's funding, media interfaces and how to manipulate the American and how to have deception campaigns on the American people. And then we get Bad Bunny. So I did all of that to get to Bad Bunny and this integration of the people like Jeffrey Epstein, who is funding this stuff behind the scenes. He has scientists, he has professors that he's talking to about how to socially manipulate America into transgenderism. And people wonder, like, why is Bad Bunny a problem, right? Like, you watched the Super Bowl. What do you think about the Super Bowl?
I didn't watch it. Yeah, I just tuned out. I've seen parts of like the halftime show, but yeah, I totally tuned out. I didn't watch the TPUSA thing either. I seen clips of that as well, but yeah, I totally tuned out. I didn't care to watch it.
Yeah, so some people, they didn't understand like why it was a big deal. Like, who's Bad Bunny? Like, nobody even knew who he was. But this is why I say that it was a big deal and why he shouldn't be on there, because we have a connection with Jeffrey Epstein and Jay-Z. And the connection is, this is a from the Federal Bureau of Investigations. This was in the Epstein files. And this talks about how, in approximately 1996, blank resided with blank in blank. An unknown man abducted blank from her home when she later awoke in the presence of Harvey Weinstein and Sean Carter, Jay-Z, while Weinstein had inserted his fingers into blank. Blank believed she was in Epstein's mansion in Florida. Okay. So here is a woman who contacted the FBI to say that she was attacked, kidnapped, woke up with Jay-Z, and that's from 1996. Here is some lyrics from Jay-Z from 1996 where he's talking about, working in the underground. I never prayed to God. I prayed to Gotti. That's right. It's wicked around here. The evils in the game is just dangerous. So he's talking about being in the underworld. But then over here in this song, this is from Reasonable Doubt in 1996. He goes, he never learned. So in turn, I'm kidnapping his baby mother. My hand around her collar, feeding her cheese. She said the taste of dollars was shitty, so I fed her 50s. So this is Jay-Z's song from 1996 where he's talking about kidnapping somebody's wife. It's not necessarily this woman that's in the Epstein files, but it just shows you where his mind is at in 1996. So he's noted for kidnapping somebody's wife in the FBI document that we just saw. And then he sings or he raps about kidnapping somebody's wife in his song in 1996. And then he's scheduling the Super Bowl with connections to Jeffrey Epstein, knowing what we know about him funding transgenderism, and he books Bad Bunny. So look at this video of Bad Bunny and tell me what you think. And do you think that this is like socially engineering? Just a white boy, obviously. Ante tu So that is Bad Bunny dressed in like full drag. He's dressed in full drag. That was him dressed as a female. So like I'm thinking, okay, you got Jay-Z, he's connected to Epstein. Epstein's over here funding this transgenderism and like trying to back channel, social engineer like transgenderism into American society. And then you have Jay-Z put in position to plan and schedule all of the Super Bowls for how many years now. And this is the guy that he puts in position. It's like, I feel like Jay-Z's part of this like cultural engineering.
Okay, so also I would say that Jay-Z, Megan Thee Stallion is also signed with Jay-Z. He also his name was also mentioned with the Tory Lanez thing, saying that Tory Lanez father yelled that Jay-Z was the reason why that Tory Lanez was going to jail. It was a lot of speculation around that, but I want to take it back to Aaliyah. Well, R. Kelly, as we know, was dating Aaliyah. She was underage, which we all have to remember. Like we can't have memory hold on a lot of this stuff because it all starts to make sense, and we all can see that it's been going on for a very long time. So R. Kelly started working with Aaliyah in like 1993, 1994. Okay, and R. Kelly also right, he married Aaliyah essentially as a kid. And also, R. Kelly, well, so it's really not about R. Kelly, it's more about Jay-Z, but R. Kelly and Jay-Z, after Aaliyah died, which there was some stuff saying that Jay-Z allegedly tried to talk to Aaliyah as well. I don't know how true that is. I've heard that Dame Dash, who was associated with Jay-Z, also was dating Aaliyah when she died. And Jay-Z so R. Kelly's sex tape, which was with the underage girl, that came out in about I think he was finding that in about 2001. It was the 90s into 2001 because around the time Ignition came out was when that sex tape he was going to court for that sex tape, which the young lady actually came out who was in that tape and said it was her. She actually did this recently. And she lied on stand. But after the sex tape, after that he went on tour with Jay-Z. He did a whole album with Jay-Z, The Best of Both Worlds, and they went on tour and they did the Best of Both Worlds tour. And also with Diddy, you can put the Jay-Z angle in with Diddy because guess what? Jay-Z and Diddy are like best friends. Okay. And like you just don't have all of this stuff going on around you if you're not implicated in it some way, not to mention that Jay-Z has a big age difference over Beyonce. You know? It's a lot going on in the Jay-Z, world. All of this obviously is allegedly. I know they like to send legal letters. All of this is alleged, but it's, very interesting when you really just think about this pipeline of stuff that has happened over time. I think we should start connecting dots even with, the Abercrombie& and Fitch thing where they had that sexual allegations where those boys at Abercrombie& and Fitch was being, sexually assaulted, I don't know. It's a lot, and if you remember, Ashton Kutcher was an Abercrombie& and Fitch model. So it seems like it's a lot of, stuff that is kind of like I always say it's all connected. We think that we're looking at all these different pictures, but it's actually one big giant picture, and if you can put the big picture together, then it'll all make sense, and it would even when it goes back to Epstein, like, degeneracy, Jay-Z promotes like I said, the Megan Stallions. He's the one that put Bad Bunny there and is promoting the degeneracy. And I think that this is done purposefully because I looked up earlier to see if Taylor Swift ever performed for the Super Bowl. I think that would have been a good person to put in there. And she hasn't. Okay, so Taylor Swift haven't even had a shot at the Super Bowl when I know that that would have been a pretty good choice to choose someone like Taylor Swift to do the Super Bowl. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that they purposefully want to put degeneracy on as many TV screens as they can.
Going back to Epstein, like he was funding the people that do research and interventions on algorithms so that it can curate the perspective of the scroller, the perspective of the audience. So they were involved. His funding is involved in what information you see on your algorithm and what information you don't. That doesn't mean he's the only one that was putting money behind this, but he definitely was funding the MIT Media Lab and also funding these scientists that were like working behind the scenes on how they're going to curate culture. And it makes you also think like, what do these people believe in and like what is their spirituality? And you talk about everybody being like involved, and it's almost like all of your favorite, even Nicki Minaj last week came out and said that all of your favorite Hollywood superstars are sacrificing children to their god, and that they all worship Moloch, and that they are basically participating in human sacrifice. And this has been a tale as old as time. I feel like I first heard about the Illuminati or whatever like back in 2010, like a while ago, like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. But then now with all of these revelations coming out with like Epstein and the child sacrifice and like the religious component as well, it kind of makes you think like, is there something actually going on? And I have this one more clip, and it's of Beyonce. I don't know if you remember this song called Grown Woman, but I went back after all of this Epstein revelations came out, and I went back and watched some of her music videos, and I found this one, and I thought it was weird that at the end, she's sitting on a bed in front of a portal, what it seems like. She's wearing some headdress that looks like an Egyptian style headdress, and she has children sitting on her with her legs wide open. And I just saw this and I thought it was weird, and I want to get your take on it. Take a look. Like, is that weird? Is it weird? This was like 10 years ago.
It is a little weird. I personally think that Beyonce is really big in the symbolism and um the satanic things that I feel like that she does, and even some of her music gets really dark if you really listen to it. She has a song where you know how they talked about the girl that Jay-Z supposedly cheated with. It's like this whole theory about around Blue Ivy and whether that's Beyonce is the real mother. And remember, if you remember when Beyonce was
Of
pregnant with
course.
Blue Ivy, she had the slip with her belly and it went in and it wasn't supposed to go in and if you look up a moon bump you can understand how that probably happened. So she has some very dark lyrics talking about like basically look what you made me do to you, and then she was talking about the girl was all blue, you know. So it's like I personally think that you don't get to billionaire status without having to do something. Me personally. You know, I think that you don't get there by just not participating. Like even with Nicki Minaj, you don't get to kind of where you are without having to participate in some type of way, some type of ritualistic something. I feel like you're not just there watching. You don't just know this because you heard about it, you know. How do you know? Is the
Yeah.
question when it comes to
Well,
Nicki, because she listen, I have this theory with Nicki Minaj because if when it comes to Nicki Minaj, I talked about this before on my channel though, like when she came out, she was late 2000s, she came out essentially. And one thing about Nicki when she came out, she was promoting um LGBT essentially. She was like we had never seen. First of all, she was like this Barbie type thing where her body she promoted the mutilation surgery. So like not the mutilation surgery, but okay, sorry, I gotta calm down so I can get my thoughts out. Okay, so essentially one of the first things with Nicki Minaj is that basically she like got all of this surgery, but she didn't get like subtle surgery. She got this like you can tell that she got surgery type body. So this is right the early stages of when BBLs became popular. This whole Barbie like Coca-Cola shape became popular. So one thing I think about when I think about the BBL movement with people getting all these BBLs, I think that ties into transgenderism too. And I say that because they want women to change their bodies so they look unreal, right? So they look unreal. So when you get transgenders to change their body and they're trying to be women, they look more like the women that change their bodies rather than natural women. So they have women um, changing themselves so that they can basically women are doing it for like self-esteem purposes because they want to look good whatever, but this idea you seen what it was an epidemic where everybody was doing it. Like you can't go outside these days without seeing a BBL, right? So they kind of normalize this fake look. Why would they need to do that? Right? Why would they need to normalize a BBL? These movements don't just pop up out of nowhere and it's just popular. The media plays a role in this. They amplify it. They say this is great, this is great, this is great. They show you Nicki Minaj, they show you Kim Kardashian, they show you all of this stuff. This is when Love and Hip Hop came out. Like all of this stuff came out around the same time. Okay, and then Nicki Minaj, when she first came out, like she was the first person that really did that. Her, Kim Kardashian, they were like the first kind of people that really started getting their body done. But one thing I found with Nicki Minaj too, she was pushing confusion. A lot of these celebrities like Beyonce, they have these alter egos where she's like Sasha Fierce, and I think that push the identity crisis. Like when they're like, "Oh, I'm this person, but then I'm this person," it kind of implants this idea that you can be more than one person if you know. But with Nicki Minaj, what was really different about Nicki Minaj is the person that Nicki Minaj said she had inside of herself was a boy named Roman. Okay, so it was a boy inside of her named Roman, and then she had these alter egos where she was like kind of going crazy when she rapped as Roman, and it's like all of this stuff to me, I don't know, I could just be this could be a stretch, but it kind of all tracks to the same period, right? All of this stuff happening, these BBLs, these alter egos, all of this identity crisis with the legislation that is being pushed behind it, with the media that's pushing this to the children, to even the adults, with the love and hip hop coming out, showing you like, oh, look at me, look at my body. This is cool. This is how you should be with the ignorance and all of that. So I personally think that this all was a part of the plan. I don't think any of it is separate.
Yeah. Well, now with the Epstein files, we know without a shadow of a doubt that this was part of the plan. That's what this was actually a idea coming from the financing of Jeffrey Epstein with the MIT Media Lab and with Robert Trivers out of Rutgers University. He was working with ingesting as well with Mount Sinai vaginoplasty, director of vaginoplasty or whatever. Like he was funding these people. They were coming to him for financing. So it was his, whole agenda. It was his play that he was running. And we now know that this entire like social contagion where surrounding transgenderism came actually from a plot to intercept American culture and to steer it towards a more feminized phenotype for males. So to destroy American masculinity in exchange for feminized phenotypes, which is basically to destroy testosterone and masculinity through not only just, chemical and surgical means, but also through the media that they were consuming. And this is why he was working so closely with the MIT Media Lab. And this just shows you the intersections between financing in private sector business and the government passing legislation and the Hollywood social media. I mean, social media and the Hollywood stars. I guess back in those days, like back in the 2010s, there weren't really like social media wasn't as big as it is now. So it really was like the music videos, the albums that came out, the artists that went on radio and said that, oh, I'm a man, I'm Roman, instead of Nicki Minaj, I have alternate personalities. I have a male personality and I have a female personality. And you're totally on point to say that like the BBL era and the surgery era that made all the like Instagram looking girls, right? It was like there was a look for like Insta girls. It was like the Botox and the lips and the filler, and like there was a certain look that can be replicated because it was created by plastic surgeons. So if a plastic surgeon can make a female look a certain way, they can make a male look just like her. And so you just go into your plastic surgeon chair and they just put on this face that can be regenerated. And so it's easier for like a trans person to go in there and just get this like face because they've done it so many times and now it's normalized. So now it's like, just like you said, it's not that they look like a female, but they look like the female that these plastic surgeons are creating. This like false idea of like a bad bee or like a baddie, you know what I mean? An Instagram baddie now can be an Instagram baddie can now be replicated through plastic surgery. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching our video. If you like what you saw there, make sure you hit the subscribe button. It really helps our channel grow, and we really appreciate all the support.